Welcome to Reflections, the podcast that biblically encourages, equips, and empowers women for apostolic life and service. Here's your host, Dr. Cindy Miller.
Surprise, welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Cindy Miller, and I am representing Reflections magazine today. And we have been talking about cultural awareness and integration. And we've specifically in the first part of this episode, we talked about the role of the church, body of Christ. But today we're going to move a little off of, what should the church be doing and remind ourselves that we make up the body of Christ. And so it's not like, you have to have an appointed position, you have to be a leader, you have to create your own specific ministry to do this, but it's really just being aware, letting the Lord use you as an individual in someone's life to make a difference. So back with me is my Hunley, who you met in the first episode, and nothing's changed in her life since that recording that I know of. So you can
just doing more deep breathing.
She's more deep breathing. Yes, she's been doing that a lot more. But we have added May Butler, who I love dearly, and when I met her by watching a recording of her singing, and then she ministered to the congregation, and I was so impressed by her. I knew this is a person I wanted to get to know. So May, let me introduce you. She's the wife of Dane Butler. She's mother of Logan, Levi, and Luke, and they pastor International Pentecostal Church in California. May is from the Philippines, and she was 14 when her family came from the Philippines to the United States, and that's a story in and of itself that she may have time to share a little bit about today, other than saying that she wanted to go home the first day, is kind of like sums it up. But May is with us because she's going to talk about a gifting that the Lord has given her that is just so beautiful and just kind of addresses this topic so well, and she embodies the gift of hospitality. And I'm glad you're with us today.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're here. I hope y'all both feel at home and are going to enjoy it. So today we're going to just talk about relationships in your home, relationships in marriage, parenting, in-laws. I'm sorry Francie couldn't be here for part 2. I know she would love to talk about what her in-laws should do better in recognizing cultural differences, but she had to go. So we're going to talk about that.
Conveniently.
Conveniently. I'm not saying I arranged that flight, but hey, if it happened, it happened. But we're just going to talk about what does it mean to be aware, to be individual, just caring about other people in their world and where they're coming from. So I want to start. You had a great story that you didn't get to share in the first episode, and I want you to share it now.
Okay.
And it's about when you first arrived and you started school.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So why don't you share that story?
Oh, my goodness. Well, my parents are hardcore, so we land in Canada, I think on a Friday. We sign up for school on Monday, and Tuesday is the first day of school. So it's
and you're 8 years old.
And I'm 8 years old, and I have a younger brother. Well, I have actually 3 younger brothers, but the one born right after me is old enough to go to school with me. So my dad takes us on that cold, snowy Canadian morning to the bus stop. And a yellow school bus comes, and he puts us on that bus. I mean, he doesn't speak English. I don't speak English. So here we are in this foreign land, just, doing the school thing. So I get on the bus, and it wasn't long before I realized this bus was going the wrong direction. And sure enough, we get in front of a school, and it's the wrong school. And in fact, it was a French school. So not even English. Yeah. Here I don't even speak English, but I definitely don't know French. And so my 8-year-old mind goes into overdrive thinking, what are my options? What do I do here? Okay, all I can do basically is get off this bus and walk home. Try to walk home.
On a cold winter day.
January
with your little
day,
6-year-old brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, good option.
I mean, it seemed like it at the time. And we start walking, and we're walking and we're just lost. I mean, like we realize after a while we're just lost. We can't figure this out on our own. There were no cell phones at that point. This was 1991. So I just should have done this at the very beginning. My apostolic upbringing finally kicked in, and I got desperate, and I remember sitting down on a tree stump with my brother, and I prayed. And it was the simplest prayer. It was just, God, you know where we are. I don't know where we are, but you know where we're at. And please help us to get home. And as soon as I had prayed that, I looked across the street, and there was a house across the street that had a block parent sign in it. And it was just a picture of an adult holding a child's hand, and so somehow that registered as this is a safe place for me to go. And so I walked across the street with my little brother, who's tired and hungry by this point, and tears are just streaming down my face. I try to be brave, but all of that is gone by this point. And I ring the doorbell, walk up the few steps to the porch, ring the doorbell. Lady opens the door, and she's kind and so wonderful and starts asking us questions, but I don't understand anything that she's saying. The tears are just streaming down my face. I look up at her, and I just say, Yugoslavia, Yugoslavia, Yugoslavia. She asks more questions, same answer. And would you believe that in this little town, God had a person working, I believe it was another police officer, working at the police station. When she called the police station to tell them about this situation, they were able to get this man on the phone. He spoke not the majority language, he spoke the minority language, Slovak, and he asked me questions. I told him the whole story, and they got us home safely. Wow. But from then on, we were literally labeled because everything we wore had to have our name, address, phone number. It was on everything. I mean,
if lost, return to.
Yes, exactly. So,
how long did it take you to learn English?
I started attending ESL classes pretty much immediately, and they held me back a grade, and I had to go on this special bus for half of the school day, where I would go to another school where they taught me English. And it took probably, I would say, less than a year, because when you're young, it comes pretty natural. And I was a very voracious reader. I love to read, and so I learned a lot of English just from reading books. I wouldn't know how to pronounce things, but
you recognized it.
But I recognized it, yeah.
Well, my daughter-in-law from Greece, Gina, you met her, yes, Gina. Yes. And she talked about when she came, she was 6 when they came from Greece, Athens, and she, of course, like Francie and you, she was put into school right away, and they had to hold her back as well because just simply because she didn't speak the language.
Yeah.
And she and her mom came to the Lord and brought them to church. And one of the first services that they were in, her and her brother with the mom, was one of the missionaries from Greece was in that service. And so he got up and he started singing, and he sang. And she said they both just set up because that's the first time they were hearing their language in that church. And how somehow that just made her feel like everything's going to be okay because I'm in this church, but I'm hearing these songs, and in her 6-year-old mind, it's like, if you can sing those songs in this church, then I'm going to be okay. And I just think that is like how God works, you know. He cares about the children.
He does.
I don't know if the man that worked there, God said, you know what, one day Maya's going to need this, so I'm going to put you right here. I don't know if he organizes deputational schedules so 6-year-old little girls get to experience this, but I think
does.
God is in control.
Yes,
Yes, He is.
So I want you to tell us a little bit. So you're a recording artist. I forgot to mention that. A voice so beautiful. How did you wind up coming to the States?
So in 2002, my dad and I were invited to sing, and he plays the piano, so to do the music for a Filipino conference in San Diego. And so we were so excited because, United States is like, you have to be there.
Yes.
Everyone wants to go. Yes. That's where dreams come true. We were so excited. And as soon as we landed in LAX, my dad said, we're going to live here. God is directing me for us to live here. And I thought about that throughout the whole trip because we were only supposed to be there for a week. And so after the conference, my dad said, I'm going to stay here. You and your mom will get your brothers and get all the papers ready and everything. And so I didn't really have time to process everything and think about it. I do know how to speak in English because in the Philippines you have to. It's like it's a requirement for you to
What a benefit.
pass a grade, and you have to learn write, speak in English, so it's very important for us to learn the language. And so, but coming here was like, oh my goodness, like I don't, that's something that I had to process because my dad decided that we're going to live here. So I was not expecting that, but, looking back, I know God was, speaking to my dad at that moment, and it wasn't just something that he thought about randomly because I knew God had a plan. So I'm grateful for that. I'm thankful for that.
So is Dane.
Yes.
So you're coming and you're thinking these are teenage years.
Yes.
So you left your friends and everything that was familiar. You're in a new church setting and school setting. Everything was different. So, but you did have the language, but that didn't mean everything felt like home right away.
Right. Well, thankfully, they have a large Filipino community in the church. So they welcomed us like family and took care of our family. But we go back and forth because my grandmother already lived in the United States. So she's in LA. And then our home church at that time is in San Diego. So we'll drive. We took the bus, Greyhound, back then. So Friday nights we'll go back and forth. But I went to school in LA, and that was a time when it was just so dangerous and gangs were all around. And it was culture shock for me because there's always cops every day at the school, and I was like, "What is this?" I thought this is the land of the free. I was so excited. There was one time that somebody in the cafeteria gave birth, like in the cafeteria. Am I supposed to mention that? Is that okay?
Okay. You can do that.
But anyway, I was so culture shocked, and I was like, oh my goodness, I want to go home. And back then there's like this phone cards because there's no FaceTime or internet or anything like that. So I always wanted to purchase those phone cards to call my friends back home. And it's like $30 for 30 minutes.
Yes, I
remember those days, and I just couldn't wait until I get those cards so that I can call home. And I was homesick. But I'm so grateful for our church at that time that welcomed me and immediately invited me to youth functions like youth retreats and all of that. And I was just so surprised in how friendly people are here. I know in the first episode you mentioned about the being reserved, and that's the same thing in our culture. It's just they're a little bit more reserved, but then here in America they're not afraid to say, oh, what are you doing? You want to hang out? How are you? So I was immediately
And you had a church that was really kind of trained to do that.
Yes. I had a friend that I met that day. Her name is Amy. I'm still good friends with her to this day. And she literally told me, you want to stay in my room at youth retreat? Can you be my best friend? Like so bold like that. I'm like, okay, sure.
You kind of talked about that too. You felt like people were a little overwhelming at times.
Yeah, and like hands down, North Americans are the most like loving, like generous,
welcoming
people.
Right.
And so it can be overwhelming I guess I would recommend being a little bit gentler maybe in your approach, because for someone who's not from that kind of a culture where we hug and act like best friends right from the beginning, it can be a lot, right? So, but I mean, wonderful, and we get used to it. We are very flippant. We can be in the North American culture very flippant, like, yes, come over to my house anytime.
And we mean it.
And you mean it.
I mean it. I just don't mean right now.
But for a culture that's more literal, it's like, oh, you are inviting me to your house. Like, let us get out the calendar and let us write it down right now, which is not bad. It just is. But I remember coming to Canada and the U.S. and just thinking, are these people even for real? Like, what? Right. I mean, like, they're acting like they're my best friend and that we've just met. Like, in my culture, we're kind of trained to be suspicious of such people. Like,
we got
what do they want?
Well, she got a best friend right away.
And I'm still
friends today.
Still good friends with her till today. She was a part of my wedding, and
but you know what? That's kind of like that placement that we're talking about, how the Lord puts people in our lives. You know, like He's looking ahead to say, you're going to need this, and you're going to need this, and I just think this awareness that the God who leads us and says, you need to relocate and live here, and, you know, it moved on your parents to do that, and whatever brings people to that place, this God who is leading us, He's also taking care of us. Yes. You know, He's looking out for us. But let's talk a little bit about your gift, the gift of hospitality, because I don't think you really would say, oh, I have a special gifting for that. But in the time that I've known you, you amaze me because you're very aware of hospitality in a way that I'm not. Mm-hmm. You know, like I feel like hospitality, if I'm not careful and thoughtful and mindful about all of the details, is like, oh, I'm going to feed you lunch. That's my gift of hospitality. And but you would think, well, that's just one component of, you know, because your daily life is about people and eating with them, celebrating with them, being with them in the good times and the bad. So just talk a little bit. We don't have a lot of time left, but I would really love to hear you talk about that.
I think people just wants to feel like they belong. They belong in a family. Mm-hmm. So not a church that we're just going to see each other on Sundays or maybe on Wednesday nights for a midweek service. Mm-hmm. And then bye, we'll see you again on Sunday. But it's a family. Mm-hmm. So really allowing them to become a part of your family is it's a big deal. Not just inviting them for dinner. Yeah, it's a big deal. I love to eat. And the thing is,
she's food.
Yes, I love food. But food is a common thing that we all share because we all got to eat sometime, right? And just being able to share that with people, especially with like big occasions. For instance, Thanksgiving. I know it could be a little inconvenient for some people because, hey, that's just family. It's just our close family. We don't need to be inviting other people. But really being more intentional and getting out of your comfort zone, it's like, hey, it's Thanksgiving. That's my opportunity to actually invite more people over.
Who's here without a family, that they need a family? Right.
So we have a family in our church that they just moved from Nicaragua. Mm-hmm. And they don't know anybody. They don't speak the language. They have one person in their family that speaks English, kind of. He's able to translate for everyone else. Mm-hmm. But we invited them over for Thanksgiving, and right there, already just broke that wall. Mm-hmm. And Filipinos love karaoke, so we gotta have karaoke in every gathering. So and they're very talented. You know, that family is so talented. So they sang all night, and that was it. That was already that's the walls that already that broke the walls. And you know, okay, I'm gonna say something. I know Jesus ate with his disciples. Jesus ate with the people. That's very important.
Right. He didn't just meet them at the church.
Exactly. And when he celebrates people, he goes all out. He eats with them. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's about reconciliation. It's about communion. It's not just food that, I'm just going to eat, but it's more of just really fellowshipping in a deeper level, really getting to know them, connecting with them. Not just, hey, come, eat my food, and that's important too, because we all like to eat, but really getting to know them in a personal level. What is it that you like? What can I know about you? You know, and one thing about fellowship and inviting people is it doesn't matter like what language you speak. But if you have love, that's a language that if it's a sincere love, people will get a hold of that. And they'll want to get to know more of you, and they'll be comfortable with you. So that's something that I'm so passionate about. We have a hospitality team in our church because if there's a funeral, if there's an event at the church, it's so important for us to take care of the family, have food there. But not only that, it goes beyond than just food, but really taking care of the details.
Well, I think what I love about you is you see people, you don't see project. Like for you, when you're thinking ministry, it's not like, oh, we need another department in the church. You're like, this department exists because this need exists, and these people need attention. And I think that is really true to you, my experience of knowing you.
We started the hospitality team at our church because of funerals that was happening a lot during COVID season. Okay, and that's how it started. Well, we started serving food and everything, but it's more than just that. It's really being there for the family. It's making sure that they're all taken care of, you know, during the funeral or after, making sure is everything. We're going to do a meal train for this family. We're going to reach out and call them. We're going to write them cards. We're going to send them flowers. And that's the hospitality team that I'm talking about. It's more than just, okay, we're going to feed you.
We're going to provide one meal, and then we check the box, and we're done.
Yeah, it's like, no, we're going to switch turn and check on this person. We got to call them. We got to send them flowers. We got to send them a card, something to just make them feel like they're thinking of me. I matter. I'm important. So,
well, I've known some of your Saturdays to include, everything from I have a funeral, then a birthday party, then a wedding, and then a fellowship group. Like, what vitamins are you taking? You know? But when you're up and down emotionally, I'm like, am I still am I happy or am I still? But just that awareness, and I think that's what we're all trying to say here. And you mentioned it in the last episode. Like, we don't have to be perfect. Love people. Just put effort into it, care about them. But I think the closing words we'd want to say is this isn't about you waiting on your church to say, okay, come join this department and we've organized something. It's you going to church and saying, who's here today that I could be their friend, I could love them, I could care about them right where they are. Or it could be in the workplace, or it could be the neighbor who moved in next door.
Yes.
So this is you allowing God to speak to you and open your heart up. And when your heart is open, then you're willing to open your mind up. You're willing to say, there's something more than just exactly what I know and like right here. There's something more. And you may find out that you really love it and it's a good fit for you. So thank you both
for
being here and sharing. There'll be a lot more good stuff in the notes section, and then the article is going to be available. So anything, the little pieces that are missing, you'll find it in Reflections Magazine under Let's Talk, and it'll be an article there. And it's kind of leading to All Nations Sunday, so we hope that you support All Nations Sunday and get involved with that. Thank you for being here today. Please share this podcast with others. We want your comments. We want you to hit that like button, hit that love button, and help us keep doing a good job because we want to further the kingdom of God for His glory. Take care. I'll see you next time.